Introduction. Mizo National Front (MNF) is regional and political party of Mizoram, India. The name MNF emerged out from Mizo National Famine Front that was created by Mr. Paul Oldinga for protesting against functioning of Indian central government towards famine condition in Mizo areas and regions of Assam in year 1959. This staged a chief uprising in year 1966, which is followed by several years for underground activities. In year 1986, it signed Mizo Accord having Indian government, renouncing violence and secession. MNF endured strong wave of incumbency in 2008 elections of Mizoram and lost the entire of their seats of MLA except 3. History. In year 1959, the Mizo Hills was overwhelmed by great famine identified in history of Mizo as Motam. The reason of famine was credited to bamboo flowering that therefore resulted in population boom and augmentation of rats in massive quantity. After eating up the seeds of bamboo's seeds, rats turned on the way to crops and diseased the houses and huts and turned into assigned villages. The mayhem created by rats was quite terrible. In addition, awfully little of grain and cereals was harvested. For nourishment, several Mizos need to collect leaves and roots from jungles, whilst a substantial quantity died due to starvation. Previously, in year 1955, the Cultural Society of Mizo was created and Mr. Oldinga was the secretary of that society. In the month of March in 1960, name of Cultural Society of Mizo was changed into Motam Front. During the food shortage of year 1959 to 1960, Motam Front took head in trying relief and managed for attracting the attentions of the entire sections of people. In the month of September in 1960, this society adopted name Mizo National Famine Front or MNFF. MNFF gained substantial popularity like large figure of Mizo youth and young-aged people assisted in the transportation of rice along with other necessary commodities for interior villages. Underground movement. The Mizo National Famine Front that was initially formed for helping ease immense sufferings and problems of people throughout severe Motam scarcity in Mizoram was changed into Mizo National Front, MNF on 22 October in 1961. The methods in which authority of day managed the food shortage left people disenchanted. The secessionist wave along with armed rebellion was running quite high among Mizos. In year 1966, Mizo National Front, MNF, headed main uprising against government, however failed in gaining managerial control of Mizo district. The movement of secessionists held on for approximately 2 decades. Throughout that instance, they invaded the Burma, asserting Tahun and Chin state belonged to the Mizoram as most of inhabitants in Tahun region are Mizo. Peace settlement. This episode of insurgency lastly came to close having signing of Mizoram peace agreement on June 30 in 1986 between underground government and administration of Mizo National Front, MNF, and Indian government. Under terms of peace agreement, the Mizoram was approved statehood in month of February in 1987. Mr. Oldinga nominated as Chief Minister, however soon he lost the power because of defections in party. Mizo National Front rising in March 1966. The month of March in 1966, Mizo National Front, MNF, revolution was uprising against Indian government, aimed to establish an independent state for Mizos. On 1 March in 1966, the Mizo National Front, MNF, made announcement of independence, just after launching corresponding attacks on government offices along with security forces positioned in several parts of Mizo district of Assam. Governments concealed the revolution and evoked the entire places which are seized by Mizo National Front, MNF, by 25 March in 1966. Operations of counterinsurgency continued more than next several years, even though intensity of revolt reduced over time increasingly until its whole resolution in 1986 talks of peace. During government operations for suppressing rebellion, Indian Air Force executed airstrikes in the city of Aizawl. This remains only example of India executing an incursion in civilian territory of its own political party. Former leader of guerrilla Mr. Pu Saranthanga elected as party leader to follow death of Mr. Loldenga in year 1990. In the year 1998 as well as 2003 Mizo National Front, MNF, won elections of State Assembly, and Mr. Pu Saranthanga was the Chief Minister for 10 years. In 2003 elections Mizo National Front, MNF, won 21 out of 40 seats in State Assembly and obtained 1,32,505 votes, which is equal to 31.66%. MNF was division of National Democratic Alliance, but afterward withdrew in the year 2007. The officers of year 2007 were President, Mr. Pu Saranthanga, Vice President, Mr. Puton Luya, and Treasurer, Mr. Putlangming Thanga. The Mizo National Front, MNF, suffered heavy trouncing in 2008 elections of State Assembly, winning just 3 of the 40 seats, and Indian National Congress or Incorporated swept to authority. Famous party ministers Pu Loldenga. Mr. Pu Loldenga was renowned Chief Minister of the state of Mizoram in northeastern region of India. He ruled there from 1986 to 1988, preceding that, he had headed secessionist Mizo National Front, MNF, from year 1960 till its dissolution following the Mizo Agreement with Mr. Rajiv Gandhi in year 1986. His requirements for severance from India turned popular after great food shortage of late in 1950s while hunger stalked on hills following Motam. State of Assam failed in rushing the required supplies and orders in time for the easternmost district, making both resentment and foundation for Mr. Loldenga's Mizo National Front, MNF. On the night of February 28, 1966, the MNF launched an audacious attack on the district's major towns, resulting in the March 1966 Mizo National Front uprising. It declared independence and called on the Mizos to rise against Delhi. The Indian government responded by sending troops and aircraft on bombing missions. Villagers were uprooted from the hills and century-grouped villages built along the highways. For the next 20 years, violence continued in the Mizo Hills with the fighters camping in East Pakistan. With the fall of East Pakistan in 1971, Loldenga's men scattered to Myanmar while he moved to Pakistan. After secret meetings in Europe with Indian officials, he returned seeking a peaceful resolution of the problem. Saranthanga. Mr. Saranthanga was born on 13 July in 1944, was Chief Minister of State of Mizoram, India, from December 1998 to December 2008. His political party, the Mizo National Front, MNF, lost 2008 election of Assembly to Indian National Congress or Incorporated. He tendered the resignation to the Governor Mr. Mlakara on 8 December in 2008. After that he left office. 3 days later, Mr. Saranthanga has quoted incumbency as cause for loss of the party. He fought for both South and North Champhai but lost both of the constituencies. When Mizoram rebellion started in year 1966, he attached secretive movement and enthused to jungle. He was proffered position of secretary for Ranbang area, accountability he held better for 3 years. In year 1969, the entire Mizo National Front, MNF, cadres went down for East Pakistan, which is now termed as Bangladesh. The president, Mr. Pu Loldenga, occupied him like his very confidential and active secretary. He had done that job for 7 years. In year 1979, he was provided the accountability of vice president, who was in detention by army, in addition held at quarter guard for Assam Rifles during insurgency. Because of that, he is vigorously pushing relocation of the Assam Rifles from city outside of the Aizawl. He was elected as a minister in temporary state government. When the Mizo National Front, MNF, created government in year 1987 under leadership of Mr. Paul Aldinga, he seen after education and finance departments. In year 1990, at what time Mr. Paul Aldinga died, he nominated